What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. This is my full card breakdown and prediction video for UFC Abu Dhabi. We have Umar Nurmagomedov going against Cory Sandhagen. A very, very fun fight night card here. 13 fights on the card. An early start time as well. I'm looking forward to an early start time. I do have, for the first time in forever, some plans on Saturday night. So going to be able to watch the fights and then go out and do whatever. So yeah, looking forward to some early fights on Saturday. Looking forward to this card from a betting perspective. I do have quite a few bets this week. A lot of underdogs sticking out on the card. Some violent spots sticking out on the card. And overall, just a good solid card. And I'm looking forward to breaking it down. So before we get into it, if you guys could please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. It is the first of the month, so that means it is a great time to sign up on dfsbythenumbers.com. That's where you'll find all my other content. And I do want to shout out the winner for the Significant Strike contest last week between Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards. Significant Strikes, they combined for $115, and the prize was $25 to first, unless you got it on the dot. And shout out to Brettman 577. Shout out to Brett with 115, got it right on the dot, was able to hit him up, give him his winnings there. And he was actually a repeat winner. So shout out to Brett. That was his second time winning. So shout out to you, Brett. Great guess. And I'll be doing more contests as the year goes on there. So yeah, shout out to Brett once again. All right, with all that out of the way, I say we get right into it, guys. And we're going to start with the first fight of the card, which is a terrible fight. You know, very, very terrible fight, but it should be like hilarious, I think. So we have Cedricus Dumas going against Denis Tiuliulin. We got Dumas, 28 years old, 6'2" with a 79-inch reach, 9-2 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Denis Tiuliulin, this guy's 36 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach, 11-9 and 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Yeah, this fight is rough. I mean, Denis Tiuliulin is like, I mean, you see it right, like 11-9. His only win comes against Jamie Pickett. As far as Cedricus Dumas, I mean, he hasn't looked great at all thus far in the UFC, but Cedricus Dumas is currently a minus 220 favorite, and Denis Tiuliulin is plus 185, and this is a fight that I mean, it's a terrible fight. I think it could probably go either way. I'm shocked at this line. I mean, what has Cedricus Dumas done to warrant being a minus 200 favorite against anybody? I mean, look at his fights. Getting finished by Josh Fremd, just looking back at it, is just terrible. And like even his wins are some of the worst fights you'll ever see. In the Cody Brundage fight, Cody Brundage didn't show up, and SD only landed 17 strikes. It was the worst fight I've ever seen. And then against Abu Azaitar, who's not that great, Abu Azaitar actually outlanded Dumas. Dumas landed 34 strikes across 15 minutes, and I'm not even convinced he won that fight. So yeah, I mean, Dumas has not shown me anything inside the UFC. Outside the UFC, it's kind of a different story. I was somewhat impressed with Dumas. This guy's big, long range. He has some power, has somewhat of a submission game. But inside the UFC, he just looks very tentative. He's not throwing anything. He's not showing a ton of power. He's not showing much wrestling in there. So yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm going to pick Denis Tiuliulin with little confidence here, because you can't have confidence in this guy. But what I will say is, like, what is Denis Tiuliulin's weakness? And it's the grappling. His grappling, some of the worst grappling you ever see. But he's getting taken down and finished by Gregory Rodriguez. He's getting taken down and finished by Jung Young Park, who's a very underrated grappler. He's getting taken down and finished by Alishkab Kizriev. His takedown defense is actually not terrible. It's 73%. It's when he does end up on his back, it is very bad. So maybe Dumas can take him down. If he does, maybe Dumas subs him, but I primarily think this fight's going to take place on the feet, and if it does, I think Denis is going to be more active. I think Denis is going to land the bigger shots, so I'm going to take Denis Tiuliulin for an upset here. It's ugly, it's nasty, but give me the dog here and Denis Tiuliulin to kick off the card, and I'll say he wins by second round knockout. Next, we have Jai Herbert going against Rolando Bedoya. We got Jai Herbert, 36 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach, 12-5 and 2-2-1 in his last 5 fights. Rolando Bedoya, 27 years old, 5'11" with a 75-inch reach, 14-3 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. I'm taking another dog here. I'm taking a lot of dogs on this card, but I'm going with Bedoya here. Jai Herbert is a guy that I've never really been high on. This is a guy who's sporting a 45% striking defense. He doesn't have a great chin. He's been hurt in multiple fights. He's been knocked out. He's been finished a lot, Jai Herbert. He's been finished in 4 of his 5 losses. And Jai Herbert has a completely different style these days, right? Like, you take a look at Jai Herbert outside the UFC. He's going out there and trying to really hunt for that finish. He's being very aggressive. But nowadays, that aggressiveness is completely gone. Jai Herbert in some of these last couple fights have just been awful, quite frankly. The Fares Zion fight was just awful. He didn't do anything in that fight. The Kyle Nelson fight was just awful. I mean, it was terrible. He only landed 36 significant strikes in that fight. So he's being more tentative, and I think the reason that is because he can't afford to go out there and get into a wild brawl because he doesn't have the chin to do so. And he's going against a guy in Bedoya who is cutting down to lightweight, I believe for the first time in his career, at least for in a while. And I think that's a great move because you look at this guy at welterweight and it's like, this guy should not be fighting up here. So Bedoya's looking to be in the best shape of his life. I like that. This is the guy that's training at Shoot the Box with Charles Oliveira in them. This is a guy who has the durability advantage, the volume advantage. So in terms of skill, like, yeah, Jai Herbert's probably the more skilled fighter, but he's just so low volume and the durability's not there. So give me Bedoya here. I'm not sure if he knocks out Herbert here. It's possible, but I could see a scenario where Bedoya's just doing more. This is the guy in Bedoya who's landed over 100 significant strikes in his last 2 fights. Jai Herbert has never landed 100 significant strikes in a UFC fight, and quite frankly, never will. So I'll officially say Bedoya, and I'll say Bedoya by decision in this one. Next, we have Victoria Dudakova going against Sam Hughes. I know Sam Hughes is a very popular underdog this week, and I get it, but yeah, I don't know what to do with this one either. It's a tough fight. But Dudakova, 25 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach, 8-0, 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Sam Hughes, 32 years old, 5'5" with a 64.5-inch reach, 8-6 and 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Looks like Sam Hughes plus 145, Dudakova minus 170. Sam Hughes is a live dog. You know, she's always a live dog. She's got that dog in her. You know, she's more often than not going to be the underdog. But for me, like, Sam Hughes is one of these fighters who, I don't want to say she has that like Homer Simpson approach, but kinda. Like you see in a lot of Sam Hughes fights, she's losing the fight early on, like in the Amorim fight. She was very close to getting submitted if she didn't cheat and grab the gloves. The Estela Nunez fight, she was getting beat up pretty bad in the first round and a half. Estela Nunez starts to gas out. Even some of these other fights, like against Luana Pinheiro, Pinheiro was having a ton of success early, ended up slowing down. Sam Hughes started to take over. This is a fight where, you know, I just don't, Dudakova does not really strike me as like a Gasser, like an Amorim, like a Estela Nunez. So I think Dudakova is going to be able to go the full 15 minutes here, no problem. And if she does, like Sam Hughes has not shown the best takedown defense. Sam Hughes has not shown the best striking defense. I think Dudakova is just going to do enough. I think this fight is going to be super close, though, so I don't hate anybody taking a shot on the dog, but I'm going to take Dudakova by decision. I think a lot of people are very low on Dudakova after her last fight against Jinyu Fry, and I kind of am as well. Like, I think that was a terrible performance, but after that fight, she came out and said that she had, like, staph infection on her ass or whatever. So, I mean, staph on your ass, I mean, that's going to certainly affect your performance, and I think it did. So as long as she does not have staph on that ass, I think she should go out there and beat Sam Hughes, but this fight's going to be close. Give me Victoria Dudakova by decision. Next, we got Guram Kutateladze going against Jordan Vucenic. We got Kutateladze, 32 years old, 5'11", with a 72-inch reach, 12-4 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Jordan Vucenic, he's 28 years old, 5'9", with a 72-inch reach, 13-2 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Kutateladze, 235 favorite. Jordan Vucenic is plus 200. And yeah, I mean, this is a fight where Vucenic is stepping in here on pretty short notice. He didn't fight not too long ago. You know, Vucenic is finishing about most of his wins in the first round by submission, at least late. I think his like last 4 wins have come by first or second round submission. But yeah, this kind of just seems like a really big step up in competition for Vucenic, and it seems like a stylistic kind of nightmare, matchup nightmare for Vucenic here. Because I don't really see him being able to take down Kutateladze. I don't really see him submitting Kutateladze. I think Kutateladze is a great grappler in his own right. I think the wrestling is going to be in favor of Kutateladze. So yeah, I mean, I think Guram just keeps this fight standing and is just a better striker over 15. So I like Guram here to win this fight by decision. I think Vucenic is an interesting fighter. I think he's dangerous. I think he's fun to watch, but just don't really like this matchup for him. So I'm going Guram Kutateladze, and I'll take him by decision here. Moving on, we got Shamil Gaziev going against Dontel Mays. We got Gaziev, 34 years old, 6'4", with a 78.5-inch reach, 12-1 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Don'Tale Mayes, 32 years old, 6'6", with an 81-inch reach, 11-6 and 2-2, and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Gaziev minus 260 now, and Don'Tale Mayes is plus 220. And Gaziev is a very interesting fighter, and he's had a very interesting UFC career thus far because he made his debut against Martin Buday, right? And he goes out there and he looks phenomenal. He beats Martin Buday, not only beats him, but beats the brakes off of him, finishes him, which is kind of impressive considering Buday is a very tough dude. So looked great in that fight. So he went from Buday and then took just a gigantic step up into a main event spot against Jairzinho Rozenstruik and loses that fight, doesn't look good at all. And then now he's taking just a gigantic step back down. So this is a fight where I kind of would throw Don'Tale Mayes in the Martin Buday category, where, you know, Gaziev, if this guy is the real deal or anywhere near the real deal, he should be able to go out there and destroy Don'Tale Mayes. But we'll have to see, because yeah, it's kind of hard to gauge this guy, because yeah, he looked great against Buday, he looked bad against Rozenstruik, but that's like such a big difference in level of competition there. So yeah, for me, it's Gaziev here. You know, I think Gaziev can maybe pressure in this fight like he did against Martin Buday. If he does that, I think he can knock out Don'Tale Mayes. Don'Tale Mayes just does not like getting hit. Every time something lands, he's just very poor reactions out of him. And then on top of that, Gaziev, if he gets a takedown here, I think he can do some really good work. Don'Tale Mayes has been finished on the mat several times in the UFC. We saw Nascimento sub him. We saw Cyril Gane sub him. We saw Alan Crowder get him out of there as well on the Contender Series. So yeah, this should be Gaziev. The gas tank is certainly worrisome. If this fight does get extended over 1.5 rounds or goes into the 3rd round, it could get ugly, sloppy, and greasy. But I'll say Shamil Gaziev goes out there and finds the early finish. Give me Gaziev and Gaziev by 1st round knockout. Next, we got Caio Fernandes going against Muhammad Yahya. We got Fernandes, 29 years old, 5'9", with a 73-inch reach, 8-2, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Muhammad Yahya, 30 years old, 5'9", with a 73-inch reach, 12-4, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Fernandes, the biggest favorite on the card. He's currently minus 400. And Muhammad Yahya, the biggest underdog on the card. He is currently a plus 300 underdog. And yeah, I mean, it's you're looking at this fight and it's like Fernandes isn't the best fighter in the world. It's just I think that Yahya, I'm just not sure what he's doing here. I mean, that performance against Trevor Peek was probably one of the worst performances I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, Trevor Peek had to try not to finish this guy. Trevor Peek hurt him on multiple different occasions, but Peek decided to be a wrestler in that fight for some reason. But yeah, Peek had him in a ton of bad spots, and Yahya just looked terrible. And like, even outside the UFC, Yahya's getting submitted, he's getting knocked out. I don't think he's just has the best skills. I don't think he's UFC level. Whereas with Fernandes, you know, this is a guy that did lose his debut as well, but lost it to Mark Diakese and had some really solid moments in that fight against Mark Diakese. I think Fernandes has really solid striking. I think he has a lot of power. I think he has a very sneaky submission game as well. So just wherever this fight goes, I think Fernandes is going to have an advantage. I think he's going to be dangerous wherever this fight goes. If this fight's taking place on the feet, I think he can absolutely knock out Muhammad Yahya. And if this fight hits the mat, I think there's a good chance he subs him as well. So for me, I do like Fernandes here. It's tough getting to minus 400, but as far as a pick, I'll take Fernandes to win this fight, and I'll say it's a first-round knockout. Next, we have Azamat Murzakanov going against Alonzo Menifield. We got Murzakanov, 35 years old, 5'10", with a 71.5-inch reach, 13-0, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Alonzo Menifield, 36 years old, 6 foot, with a 76-inch reach, 15-4-1, and 3-1-1 in his last 5 fights. Murzakanov minus 200, Alonzo Menifield plus 170. And I'm not the biggest fan of Murzakanov. I mean, I think this guy's a liar, straight up. I mean, this guy says he's 35 years old. And no, he's not. He's more so like 55 years old. That man right there is not a 35-year-old man. I mean, that guy is, 9 years older? He looks like 29 years older than me. So I don't get it. I think he's a liar, but it is what it is. In terms of his skill set, in terms of his skill set, he's a very good fighter. Like, I always seem to, for some reason, underrate this guy because he's not the most exciting fighter. But he's a really good fighter. He has a ton of power, and he's been able to go out there and win fights. And they may not be the most exciting fights in the world, but he's winning fights, and he's knocking guys out and having a lot of success in these fights. So Alonzo Menifield coming off of just an embarrassing loss in his last fight. I know it was against Carlos Ulberg, but getting knocked out in 12 seconds is just stupid. So I don't know. I mean, this should be Murzakanov here. I'm not the biggest fan of the guy, but at the same time, I can't pick Menifield. Like, Menifield's not going to be able to wrestle here, in my opinion. Is Menifield going to knock out Murzakanov, who's never been knocked out? Probably not. Is Menifield going to outpoint Murzakanov? Probably not. So it's just tough. I know these guys both hit hard, but it's tough to kind of find a path to victory for Alonzo Menifield here. So I'm going to take Murzakanov. I kind of have a feeling this fight could suck. I feel like this could be like a very lackluster kind of fight where both guys don't do much, but I'm going to take Azamat Murzakanov to win this fight and win it by decision. Moving on, we have, in my opinion, what is going to be fight of the night. It's Joe Alvarez going against Elvis Brener. We got Joe Alvarez, 31 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach, 20-3 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Elvis Brener, 26 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach, 16-4 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Joe Alvarez, minus 160. Elvis Brener is plus 140. And this is a tough fight to call. Honestly, this is a fight that I've been going back and forth on all week, and it's like, Joe Alvarez is extremely dangerous. I don't know how this guy makes lightweight. Actually, he doesn't make lightweight because he's missed weight like 3 times. But yeah, when he does make lightweight, I'm like, how does he do it? But we'll have to see on the scales this week. But he's massive. I mean, 6'3", he's gonna be 5 inches taller. He's gonna have a 5-inch reach advantage as well in Alvarez, and he's just so dangerous wherever the fight goes. On the feet, he has a ton of power. He throws with very bad intentions, and then on the ground, this guy has an elite submission game. He's no joke on the ground. I think he has like 16 subs on his record. So Joe Alvarez is one of the more dangerous guys in the division. 100% finish rate. This guy's never won a decision and probably never will, because that's just his style. He's going out there and finishing fools. Elvis Brener, this guy is just the definition of a dog. We know that by now. This guy is going to go in there. He's going to fight for your money. He's going to take an absolute beating. He's going to get hurt multiple times in the fight. He's going to be put in a ton of bad positions, which should scare you in a match like this against Alvarez, because there's a good chance that Alvarez, if he hurts you, he is going to finish you. If he does get you in a submission attempt, he's going to probably sub you. So yeah, that's maybe not the best strategy here, but I'm kind of leaning Brener here. Brener is a guy that is going to push through adversity, whereas I'm not sure I could say the same thing about Alvarez. I'll never forget that Alvarez fight against Sarukian, and I know it's Arman Sarukian, but Arman Sarukian's not really going out there and finishing many dudes, but Sarukian got on top and just beat the brakes off of Alvarez, and I can maybe see Elvis Brener doing something like that, especially as the fight goes on. I think the pressure could maybe get to Alvarez. We've seen Brener's pressure get to fighters before, so this is a fight that, in my opinion, could go either way. I think Alvarez could very well land a big shot early or find a sub early. But as this fight goes on, I think Brener can maybe take over, push a pace, and maybe break Alvarez later in this fight. So I'm going to take another dog here in Elvis Brener, and I'm going to take him to win this fight by 3rd round TKO. Should be an absolute banger of a fight, this fight. Next, we have Mackenzie Dern going against Lupita Godinez. We got Dern, 31 years old, 5'4", with a 63-inch reach, 13-5 and 3-2, or 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Lupita Godinez, 30 years old, 5'2", with a 61-inch reach, 12-4 and 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Give me another dog here. I think I'm picking like 6 dogs this week. But yeah, give me Lupi here in this one. Kind of how I see this fight playing out is, Lupi is going to be the much better wrestler by a mile. Obviously, Mackenzie Dern's the much better grappler by a mile, but every fight takes place on the feet at the beginning of the fight, and Dern's going to have to get it there, and Dern doesn't have any wrestling. I mean, Dern has, a 15% takedown accuracy. I remember the days where it used to be like 7. So, yeah, I mean, Dern, I don't think she has the best wrestling, and I don't think she's really taken down Lupi. You would think Lupi wouldn't take down Dern, but I don't know. Lupi's made some really dumb mistakes in the past. But you would think that Lupi's game plan would kind of be like the Ricci fight, where it's like, just keep this fight standing and you're the better striker. Dern, her striking's improved, but it's like, still has a very long way to go. Loopy should be the better boxer on the feet. So yeah, as long as this fight stays upright, should just be Loopy outpointing Mackenzie Dern across 15. But we'll see. I mean, Dern fights are always fights that I've struggled with in the past. But I'm gonna take the dog here and Loopy to get it done and get it done by decision. But I also don't trust Loopy either. So this is a weird fight. But give me Loopy here. I think the line about a pick'em's right to me. Next, we have a fight that probably should not be sanctioned. It is Michael Chiesa going against Tony Ferguson. We got Chiesa, 36 years old, 6'1" with a 75.5-inch reach, 16-7 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Tony Ferguson, 40 years old, 5'11" with a 76.5-inch reach, 25-10 and 0-5 in his last 5 fights. So the reason this fight shouldn't be sanctioned is because I don't think Tony Ferguson should be in there. I don't know if anybody at this point feels like Tony Ferguson should be in there. I was actually shocked to see him get another fight. I mean, this guy's on a seven fight skid, and it's not only that. Like, okay, he's losing 7 fights. It's how he's losing some of these fights. Some of these fights are hard to watch. The Green fight was so hard to watch. He looked awful in that fight. He got submitted by Bobby Green. Like, how on earth does that happen? Got submitted by Nate Diaz. Like, how does that happen at this point of Nate Diaz's career? The knockout against Michael Chandler was one of the most brutal knockouts that year. And then, of course, the Justin Gaethje fight, which I think just changed Tony Ferguson. And that fight was what? 4 years ago at this point, so it's like, I don't know what we're doing here. Patty beat the brakes off of him over 3 rounds. I don't know. With that said, like, this is a matchup where I think Ferguson has a path, and it's one path, and I don't usually talk betting on this show per se, but the path would be a Tony Ferguson Darce choke, and Tony Ferguson by sub is like plus 1,400. I literally think that's his path, and here's why. Michael Chiesa, although a good grappler offensively, has been submitted 5 times in the UFC. Michael Chiesa has been submitted by Darce choke 3 times in the UFC, and guess who has a pretty good Darce? That is Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson has, I think, three Darce chokes in the UFC. So it's like, if you want to take a shot on Tony, it's the sub prop, but there's a good chance he's probably just done. I think he's been done. Chiesa, I think he's washed as well, but I think Tony's a little bit more washed at this point. How I see this fight playing out is Chiesa, he's going to take down Tony Ferguson, and I think he probably finishes him shortly after. So yeah, I'm going Chiesa first round sub. Don't mind the sprinkle on the Tony Ferguson sub. Don't mind the fight ends by sub. But I think Tony's done. I mean, if you're getting tapped out by Bobby Green, like something's off. I mean, if you're getting tapped out by Bobby Green, I think Chiesa should make this look pretty easy, get to the back, and probably choke out Tony. So yeah, Chiesa first round sub. This price is silly, but I'll take Chiesa to get it done. Moving on, we have Davis and Figueiredo going against Marlon Vera. I'm going to be going with I forgot to do the stats here. So Figgy, we'll get to that. Figgy, 36 years old, 5'5" with a 68-inch reach, 23, 3-1, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Vera, 31 years old, 5'8" with a 70.5-inch reach, 23-9 and 1, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Figgy minus 145, Vera plus 125. Super close fight here. This is a fight that I do feel like can go either way, and it's kind of a weird fight stylistically because both these guys are primarily moment winners. Both these guys are not winning a lot of decisions, and even if these guys are winning a decision, it's based off of big moments like the Marlon Vera fight, where he just beat the brakes off of Rob Font for 25 minutes, like something like that. And we've seen Figgy do the same thing where he's landing big shots, knockdowns, and across 15, because both these guys are so low volume. Marlon Vera doesn't throw a ton. Figgy throws even less. One thing that I think could be interesting is if Figgy does wrestle here. Maybe that's why he's minus 145. Maybe people think he can go out there and take down Vera, and when Vera does get taken down, he shows just zero urgency. So I guess that would be I think a solid path for Figgy. But I primarily think this fight does take place on the feet, and if it does, I think it's going to be close. I think this fight's going to look pretty 50-50. I think this fight has split decision written all over it. Marlon Vera has, in my opinion, all the finishing upside in this matchup. Marlon Vera is a guy that's never been finished, and I'm not sure he will ever be finished, whereas Figgy's been finished in 2 of his 3 losses. So yeah, I'm gonna take Vera here. This line has came down a little bit. I think Marlon Vera's like plus 150 last week or early this week, but yeah, I'm gonna take the dog here in Marlon Vera. It's tough to bet on this guy, to be honest, because it's like he always loses the first round, and in some fights he just literally doesn't show up for the entire fight. So maybe a live bet spot, because Marlon Vera, I think he's lost pretty much every single first round he's ever been in. I know there's a couple he's won, but holy crap. So yeah, maybe Marlon Vera live bet, but I'll take Vera to win this fight by split decision. I think this fight has split written all over it. Moving on, we got the co-main event. It is Shara Magomedov going against Mikel Oleksiejczuk. We got Shara, 30 years old, 6'2", with a 73-inch reach, 13-0, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Mikel Oleksiejczuk, 29 years old, 6 foot, with a 74-inch reach, 19-8, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Shara minus 235 favorite. Mikel Oleksiejczuk is plus 200. So yeah, there's a big narrative thing we need to talk about in this fight, and it's on the Mikel Oleksiejczuk side, and it's something I've talked about his last 2 fights. So his last couple fights, there was a rumor, I don't know if it's a rumor, I think it's true, but Mikel Oleksiejczuk apparently went on an interview and said that something along the lines of he's not with a team, he's not at a gym because he doesn't want to pay for a gym for all that, and he's apparently training, I don't know, with his buddies, I don't know where, like if it's in his garage, or he's apparently just not with a team, which you don't like to see that at all, and it's kind of shown in his performances, right? Like against Michel Pereira, he gets finished in 60 seconds. Against Kevin Holland, he gets finished in 90 seconds. So this guy, like, is he taking this serious? Is his heart in it? To me, it sounds like absolutely not. And then this week on Instagram, apparently he commented and said something along the lines of, if I lose this fight, and I probably will, he said, he's done with sports. So he's talking about retirement at 29. So he's not with a team. He's talking about retirement. He's saying he's going to lose the fight. I don't know if he's joking. It's a weird joke. I think Oleksiejczuk's done. I mean, if your heart's not in it, like, he's probably going to get finished here in 60 to 90 seconds. Oleksiejczuk's going to come out, I think, hot, and maybe he could catch Shara early, but I think after the first couple minutes, I think Mikel might just fold over and quit. I mean, I think this guy's done. He's been finished like 7 times in his career. Yeah, I gotta go Shara here. I'm not sure what's going on with Mikel Oleksiejczuk, but whatever's going on, it's super weird. Give me Shara by first round knockout. This should be a violent fight though for what it is, but kind of a weird situation with one Mikel Oleksiejczuk. I think this guy has some serious skill, but I don't know what's going on with the dude. Shara KO1. Then we got the main event. We have Umar Nurmagomedov going against Cory Sandhagen. We got Umar, 28 years old, 5'8", with a 69-inch reach, 17-0, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Cory Sandhagen, 32 years old, 5'11", with a 70-inch reach, 17-4, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Yeah, Umar, pretty big favorite, minus 300. Sandhagen plus 250. What I will say about these odds is I feel like Sandhagen's getting disrespected with these odds here. I mean, this is a guy in Sandhagen who's been 25 minutes multiple times, multiple main events. He's fought pretty much everybody in the division. But at the same time, Umar is just a guy that I believe in. I've always believed in. And I think this guy could be and probably will be a champion at some point in the very near future. I think the next couple years, I think this guy will be champion. And to be champion, you do got to beat a guy like Cory Sandhagen. So although I think that it's certainly a step up for Umar, this is going to be his toughest test to date. I think it's a winnable matchup stylistically. Cory Sandhagen does not have the best takedown defense. I remember at one point Sandhagen's takedown defense was like sub 20%. Since then, it has improved a little bit. I think it's like maybe 50, 60% at this point. But still, this guy, Sandhagen's getting taken down in pretty much all of his fights. I think Umar is going to have no problem getting this fight down to the ground. And once Umar gets on top, there's probably a really good chance he stays there. So I got to go Umar here. Umar Nurmagomedov by decision is kind of where I'm leaning. But yeah, should be an interesting fight. This is we're gonna find out real quick if Umar Nurmagomedov is the real deal. If this guy is a future champ. If he beats Cory Sandhagen, I think he's taken a big step in the right direction. So give me Umar, and Umar by decision. there you guys have it. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys could please do me a favor, like the video on your way out, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and be on the lookout for more content throughout the week. Doing my post weigh-in final thoughts on Friday, doing the best bet show on Saturday. I don't know what time yet because these fights are starting early. Might go live like 1 hour before the fights, but I'll be going live Saturday morning for best bet. But yeah, guys, best of luck for UFC Abu Dhabi. Should be a great card, great betting opportunities, and we'll talk to you guys soon. See you later.